Detroit, it's The Undercard. The Undercard brings you live MMA and pro boxing coverage. Each week, we will bring you feature interviews, major event coverage, up-and-coming talent, training tips, and the hottest ring girls from around the nation. The Undercard is powered by Goomba Music. And here are your hosts, Brad and Marvin.
Hey folks, Jimmy here. Once again, we bring to you some clips from our latest show. On this episode of The Undercard, episode 93, we celebrated Brad's birthday. We had interviews with world boxing champ Donovan George, author of the book The History of Women's Boxing, Melissa Smith, and we also did a bit of reminiscing on past shows. Remember that if you want to hear the full interviews, you have to turn into our show Tuesdays from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Sundays from noon to 1. We hope you enjoy the following clips.
And Sunday shows.
So that made the news.
Okay, yes.
Good segue. Come on. That was a perfect segue.
That was a great segue.
That was
It was.
At least it wasn't
But no, that would be Nikki No.
Yeah.
But
And we're moving on.
Yeah, exactly. Moving on. But Labor Day happened.
Labor Day, yes.
We actually took our first day off. Jimmy, Marv was on vacation for some of it, but Jimmy,
Yes.
realize this accomplishment. We were on for 7 straight weeks of radio, which we hadn't done since we started. Not only that,
it's crazy.
I know. I thought it was crazy too.
I think in the very beginning we did 7, didn't we?
We did not. We did
Really?
a best of show after 6.
Yeah,
that's
we did.
right, we did.
Because we were like, we can't take this.
Best of show after 5, actually.
Yeah, our
Yeah,
sixth
6-1
our
was the
sixth
best
show
of
was
show.
best of, yeah.
Yeah.
Which we're pretty
7
friggin'
straight.
arrogant to be doing a best of after 5 shows. We're like, we got plenty of material to do a best of.
If you want to see arrogance, I'm re-airing that sometime soon. Like, I think we're re-airing it, I think, like on a Sunday or something. But anyways, long run for us and stuff. But I do appreciate the episode off because I was saying, sometimes you're like really close to like the painting or the canvas, and then you step back and you're like, oh, this could be better with the show and stuff like that. But Labor Day is for the unions and stuff like that and all that stuff. But because we are such a union state and everything like that,
Not anymore.
it's a big deal in Michigan. I was reading some articles about people that they celebrate it, but they don't celebrate and don't know the meaning, and people that fly American flags for the Labor Day and stuff like that. Isn't that like misguided? I don't associate the American flag with Labor Day. I really don't. Not at all.
I see your point. I see where you're coming from.
I guess
there.
I see. I guess I see where you're going, but I don't think it's wrong to fly the American flag on Labor Day. Like, I mean,
Oh, you should always fly it.
No, I'm just saying. I mean, it's an American thing.
It's an American thing, and it's an opportunity to bring people together, to teach them, to educate them about what Labor Day actually means. And in doing so, you can show them how much labor is a part of this country, how much of this country, I mean, this country was built on that. So you just educate and teach. And I think it's a great thing, but I totally understand your...
Introduced to women's boxing. I saw Thomas Hitman Hearns fight in Joe Louis Arena. I was in the upper bowl for that one. But Layla Ali fought on that card, and at the time it looked like women's boxing could maybe start to get some momentum. Then kind of died a little bit after Layla Ali got out of the sport. What is the status currently of women's boxing in your mind? Is it still heading uphill? Is it gaining momentum, or does it need a little help?
I think at this point, at least in the United States, it could use some help. It certainly got a bump with the Olympics in 2012. And you're right, when Layla Ali retired in the mid-2000s, it just seemed as if the sport fell off the map and it stopped being broadcast on boxing channels such as ESPN's Friday Night Fights or Showtime or any of the pay-per-views. Interestingly, the sport is very popular overseas in places like Mexico and Argentina and in Germany and out in the Far East in Japan and South Korea. There's quite a following. There are a lot of championships that are fought out in those locations. And in fact, this weekend there's going to be a huge championship in Mexico between for World Boxing Council, WBC, women's boxing between Alicia Ashley, who's actually American, out of Brooklyn, and Jackie Nava, who's Mexican, and they're going to have a huge fight, but it'll be one of the biggest fights nobody's ever heard of
So
in
does that
the
mean
United States, whereas in Mexico it's quite popular.
Does that mean that if you're a boxer here, from America, that you have to travel out of the country in order to get any sort of recognition?
In some senses, that's correct. There is for instance, boxers out of California will often dip down into Mexico to fight, and the larger title fights for belts such as WBO, WBF, WBC are typically fought overseas. And in Alicia Ashley's case, I believe this is her third or fourth time that she's defending her title and in an overseas location.
And what you're describing to me is kind of common with men's boxing, though, too. I mean, Manny Pacquiao is a huge star. In the Philippines, boxing's a lot bigger than it is in the States. In Mexico, Juan Manuel Marquez is a huge star, and it translates when he fights in America. So it is a not just a women's boxing thing with other countries. It's kind of cultural, where boxing is a 6th, 7th sport here in the States behind football and baseball. It's kind of for both genders, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, Argentina tracks the same way, where, someone like Sergio Martinez is just, is a national hero. And boxing just does not have the allure that it once had in the United States. And women's boxing certainly, is following that level. As I said, with the advent of the Olympics in 2012, from the amateur perspective, there is a real growing movement in women's boxing, and there are a lot of competitions that are available, and the elite USA national champions in women's boxing are actually being supported and are able to compete not only nationally but also internationally with a lot of support, as well as the men's side. But in the women's side in particular, these boxers are really being given a lot of opportunity to grow in their sport. How this translates into the professional side is something that we have to see, because frankly these women could very easily have professional careers, but they do better as amateurs because they just can't earn a living in the United States at this time as a professional boxer.
We're being joined by Melissa. I think we're going to get a voicemail, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello.
Oh, no! Donovan, this is Brad. You're live on the Undercard. How are you today?
Hey, how are you?
Good. We are joined by the new IBO champion, the International Boxing Organization super middleweight title holder, Donovan George. Your second time on our show. Greatly appreciate you coming back on.
No problem, buddy. I'm glad to be here.
Now, first off, I think more than any sport, boxing is captured by photography very, very well. And you posted on your Facebook a picture of you being carried off. It looks like you're in tears or for sure exhausted. Tell us about winning the IBO championship, not only in front of Chicago, but at U.S. Cellular Field. What that night meant to you?
Well, I mean, it was like a whole lifetime of dreams all piled up into one night. I waited my whole life to fight for a world title, and then I get the opportunity, at one of the biggest stadiums in Chicago, in front of my hometown, friends and family, and it was an amazing feeling. It still really hasn't even sunk in yet, the fact that I won, or that it just hasn't even hit me yet. But I'm just really thankful and blessed.
Now, you got a great referee choice in Robert Byrd. The thing went to decision. You win by unanimous decision. As the fight came to a close, were you confident that you had the judge's decision? I know no one likes it to go in the judge's hands, but were you confident that you had won against Davis?
Yeah, I was very confident. As soon as the bell rang, I was pretty much certain that I won the fight. Barring a horrendous decision or some terrible corruption. I knew I won the fight. I backed him up for 12 rounds. I didn't take one step back the entire fight, and I landed a lot more of the bigger shots. So I knew I won the fight, and I was almost celebrating before they announced my name because I was so confident. But, it's boxing, so I guess you never know what the judges are looking at sometimes. But I'm glad they got it right, and they had it a little closer than I did, but, they gave it to the right guy, in my opinion, so I don't think anybody can really argue with that. Maybe Davis would be the only one to say it differently, but even his trainers told me I won and I deserved it. want to get in the ring and I want to punch somebody in the face.
I love that. That's great you brought up the hand. I didn't want to bring it up unless you brought it up, but the hand being broke. Everyone speculates that it hurts for a couple rounds, but then it goes numb and you're able to punch through it. Describe what happened when you, in the second round, when you felt your hand get broke, or did you even know you broke it? And is it true that it numbs up after a while and you're just throwing it and knowing that it's damaged, but you don't feel it anymore?
Well, you definitely feel it the whole time. Whoever told you that is a good liar. I knew I broke it immediately. I felt the pain in my toes. I mean, it was the very last punch of the second round. I remember it, very decisively. And I hit him right on top of the head. I actually hurt him with the shot. And there's a little clip of that shot on, I don't know, Facebook or one of those social medias. And I backed him up, and then it just was just brutal. And then in the mid-rounds, like 5 through 7, it was like extremely painful. Even just to block, like even blocking like his left hook or blocking his jab, it was terrible pain. But my trainer told me, to shut up, man up, and go out there and throw it anyways, and I did. I'm glad I did.
Now, did you? Episode 3 came along, and the lovely Ricky Rocks, and I will call lovely because he wears makeup.
He's lovely.
The lovely Ricky Rocks, who produced the show at the time, it was his birthday, and Ricky hated the show. I mean, he was a rock and roll guy, and he just sat there, and he was just miserable.
Oh, it was. I mean, it was awful.
Like,
I mean, he just
it was
scowls.
It was 2 hours of he's like, I think we made a mistake having this show on the network.
Yeah.
So then we were like, what works in that way is you bribe him, right? So we're like, it's his birthday, we're going to bring in a cake. And what had happened, as we are giving a refresher course to people that joined us later after episode 3, is we had to hide the cake because there was a show on at 7, and we didn't want them to know we were going to surprise them. So somebody hid it under a coat. Great plan, except they didn't tell me they hid it under a coat, and I sat on it.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah, he sat, I mean...
I sat on it, and I took out half his name, and it became Icky Rocks.
Yep.
On the cake.
Icky Rocks.
So we've celebrated...